So for today's video, I honestly didn't know what I was going to do. Because I had TDMI in my jaw real bad from like Wednesday on. I was in so much pain I wasn't even thinking about the video. That lasted until Saturday, and Saturday I'm like scrambling, like, what am I going to do? I've got 2 days left. Figure something out. So I figured out 5 ordinary wrestling moves and their origins. Now, these are in no particular order. I searched a bunch of moves and couldn't find out some of their origins. So there may be another list coming down the line at some point. But we're going to start with the German suplex. This was invented by Karl Gotch in the 1950s when he was wrestling in Japan. He invented it. He originally called it the atomic suplex, but the Japanese people he was working for did not like the name the atomic suplex because, they got atomic bombs dropped on them and it scared people. So they changed the name to German suplex because Koch was German-Hungarian, and it stuck. And so we got the German suplex. Now, another move is the Irish whip. The Irish whip was invented by an Irish wrestler, surprise, surprise, named Danny O'Mahony. I think I pronounced that right. He was an Irish wrestler in the 1930s, I believe. It may have been in the 50s. I do this video completely off the top of my head. There are no cue cards, nothing like that. Just completely off the top of my head. All the jokes, all the work. I try to memorize it all. So he invented this move. It originally wasn't a whip and they come running back. He whipped them and he held onto their arm, and when they came back, he like judo threw them and went into a pin. That was the original Irish whip. Now it has evolved over the years into what we see now. Now, can you imagine wrestling without the Irish whip? It could be done in a parking lot. But that was the original Irish whip. It was invented by an Irish wrestler, surprisingly. Why they called it the Irish whip, I don't know what he called it, but it's been called it was renamed the Irish whip. Now, as for the drop kick, this move was popularized by Joe Savoldi in the 1950s, who was an original high-flying wrestler. But actually, it was invented by Abe Coleman earlier than that. You could see him using it earlier than that, jumping at wrestlers' waists. He said he came up with the idea for the drop kick by doing a tour in Australia and watching kangaroos fight, and he originally called it the kangaroo kick. He was known as the Hebrew Hercules, and will someday probably spotlight him. We'll probably someday spotlight Joe Savoldi too. And that's how the drop kick came to be. It was originally called the kangaroo kick, and Joe Savoldi, known as the Hebrew Hercules, and Abe Coleman, known as the Hebrew Hercules, originally did it at people's waists, but was popularized by a high flyer named Joe Savoldi in the 50s. Now, I've done the German suplex, the Irish whip, and the drop kick. What else do I have? Oh yes, the superplex, which every wrestler nowadays has in their roster, wasn't invented till Dynamite Kid invented it. Dynamite Kid invented the superplex. Bret Hart calls Dynamite Kid one of the greatest wrestlers he's ever seen. And I can't wait to spotlight him because he's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I was going to do it back then, but no one voted. And next week, I think I'm going to do, what's his name? Brody Lee. But I will one day do Dynamite Kid. But anyways, Dynamite Kid invented the superplex, but he always used it as a transition move. It was never his finisher. His finisher was the diving headbutt, and his signature was always the tombstone piledriver. But he did invent the superplex, along with a couple other moves. So there's that. Other move we were going to focus on was the headlock, which no one invented the headlock. The headlock's been around in wrestling since the Greeks. I mean, no one invented the headlock. I cannot find someone who invented the headlock. It was probably somebody back in the caveman era named Grunt Kick. But the wrestler who really made the headlock popular was Ed the Strangler Lewis in the 1920s. He was known for the headlock, and he got the nickname the Strangler on a French tour because he'd put wrestlers in the headlock so tight that it looked like he was strangling people. The French thought he was strangling them, and so he got the nickname the Strangler. And he actually invented a device to improve his headlock ability, which was two pieces of wood connected with heavy coils that he'd close in a headlock. And he said he'd give it to whoever could close it, and eventually somebody could close it. And he gave it to the man. And now it goes on tour with the man he gave to his grandchildren, trying to boost support for the man's grandchildren's, for the man who closed that scholarship program for young wrestlers. But yes, I mean, this device is still on tour. It's pretty much just two pieces of wood with heavy coil springs out in between it, and only he could close it. They said Ed the Strangler Lewis had an extra tendon in his arm. That's what made his headlock so tight, but that was never proven. So he innovated the headlock. He made the headlock popular. It was his finishing move, was the headlock. And now everybody uses the headlock. It sets up a ton of moves. Well, that's pretty much all I got this week. As I said, I've had TDI in my jaw since like Wednesday, which was extraordinarily painful for the first few days. And I had to come up with something at the last minute. It is feeling better now. So next week, I think we're doing Brody Lee's career retrospective, which he kind of made a name for himself in WWE as Luke Harper, but really we all know him as Brody Lee. So see ya then. I kind of like this lighting better than the all white lighting because it doesn't make me look as much like a vampire as I am.